Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. The first thing I want to point out in this video is just a little observation I had. Have you ever noticed that the word money is very similar to the word women? Both words have 5 letters. Both words share 4 letters, except that women has a W and money has a Y. Both words contain not only an O and an E, but in both words the O comes before the E. And in both words the M also comes before the N. So the order of the letters is almost the same as well. I think the fact that the word money is so similar to the word women is not an accident. I think the subconscious minds of the people made both of those words end up the same, right? Like people's subconsciouses affect the things that they create, whether it's language or paintings or books or whatever it is. You can't help but express your subconscious when you create something artistic, and a language is an artistic thing, right? All women want guys with money, all women like money, and all guys know that women like guys with money, that women like money, that women often choose guys on how much money the guy has, or at the very least that women exclude guys on the basis of, among other things, whether the guy can afford a wife or child or not. And if he cannot afford a wife and at least one child, then she automatically discounts him in her mind, and to her he becomes persona non grata, a non-human, a thing that is not fit for love and sex and all the rest of it. Right? So this is, I don't think this is an accident that the word money is so similar to the word for women. It doesn't sound the same, but if you analyze, the spelling and the order of the letters and stuff, it becomes obvious that, these words are so similar, and considering the connection there, women are deeply connected with money. I don't think this is an accident. I don't think it was necessarily designed on purpose that way, but I think those words came out that way because of the subconscious connection that people have in their minds of how women want money and stuff like that. Another thing I want to say in this video is that women don't just pretend to be happy when they're angry so that they can get revenge without the victim suspecting that he is being targeted, that he is in danger. But women also pretend to be angry when they're happy, such as like if a guy who they like but have not even gone on a date with steals a kiss, she doesn't want him to have the upper hand by letting him know that she likes him or that she liked being kissed against her will, and so she well, not against her will, but like without permission. She doesn't want to let him know that she liked it, that she enjoyed being kissed, so she pretends to be angry at him for kissing her out of the blue like that, and it's easy for her to change gears in a millisecond from enjoying the kiss to slapping him right after it's over. That is part of why women are so in the moment and so mercurial. It gives them an evolutionary advantage in terms of relationships, lying, survival, charm, getting along with children, and probably other things as well. In other words, women being in the moment and not being long-term thinkers, but instead being focused more on the present moment as well as being mercurial and being able to change their minds on a dime, it makes women better at lying, better at survival, it makes women more charming, it makes women more able to get along with children, it makes women better at manipulating men, etc. And notice how all of these things are not conducive to a functional society without a man. It is up to men to make sure that society runs smoothly, fairly, rationally, etc. And that cannot be done as long as women have power in society. Unless women choose to go back to their historical place in society, that is, as wives who have kids and who take care of their kids as a job, and who do not work and who do not vote, unless this happens, whether voluntarily or by men forcing it to happen, unless it happens, society will not return to sanity because women are geared toward doing things related to men and children, and women are not geared, not designed by evolution to do things relating to society and to the long-term survival of society. Men need to work and decide how society is to function. Women are to be faithful and take care of kids. Another thing I want to say in this video is that 99% of MGTOW men are basically fags. Fags are weak, cowardly, unprincipled, etc. Most MGTOW men bend over for government. And I'm not talking about obeying unjust laws or paying taxes to this evil government. I'm talking about in their minds. The vast majority of MGTOW men have given up, have accepted their own enslavement, have given up on the very idea of overthrowing the government, of getting freedom back, of keeping every penny of what they earn, of being answerable to no one but their own conscience. That is how it is. That's how it would be under anarcho-capitalism, right? You make your own rules. You make your own law. You follow your own conscience, right? There is no difference between the mafia and the government. They both force you to pay them a large percentage of your income, such as, like, I think in the movie, what is it called? The Departed? Like, I think they call it protection money or something. It's like when they go around all the businesses and extort them. And they say, you know, we're going to screw up your store or whatever if you don't pay us. You got to pay us this protection money, even though really you're only paying them to protect you from themselves, from them. Right? Although, ostensibly, I guess they might also protect you from rival gangs or rival mafia, but basically they're like shaking you down, you know what I'm saying? They're saying, you got to pay us a certain amount every month, no matter what, and if you don't, we're going to screw your store up. We're going to burn it down, or we're going to kill you, or kill your kids, or whatever, right? So the government and the mafia are basically identical in this way, right? They both force you to pay a large percentage of your income, or at least some percentage of your income, and they'll both employ violence against you if you take a moral stand and refuse to pay them. But government is worse than the mafia because it brainwashes your kids, uses in schools, uses endless propaganda against you as well on TV and everywhere else. It prosecutes you when you find and exploit a tax loophole. Like, you know, if you find a tax loophole and you use it, the government would be like, oh no, that doesn't apply to you. Even though the law is vague and gray and you really shouldn't be prosecuted for that, they should just close the loophole. They're going to prosecute you anyway, right? But the mafia, at the very least, the mafia will pay if you bet correctly on a sports game with a bookie. So it's like the government will screw you over even if you find a loophole, but like at least the mafia will pay up if you bet correctly. You know, like the betting is geared to benefit the mafia, so like at a casino, overall they always win, but like on an individual bet, if you win, they'll pay up, right? That's better than you get from the government, right? By just accepting government's tyranny, men are doing the equivalent of bending over and letting another guy ass rape them just because the other guy, the would-be rapist, threatens the first guy with a stick. Would you just bend over and let a guy rape you just because he threatened you with a stick? You would not, right? You find the very idea to be repulsive, right? So then why are men not making videos advocating for the abolishment of government? Why are men acting as if government cannot be defeated? Why are men essentially telling the rapist that they're going to go limp as a way of fighting the government, as if that is somehow going to make the rapist stop raping them, or as if it's going to make the rapist compromise and stop thrusting so roughly, and instead start making the rape more gentle, as if that's like some kind of consolation or something. Do you see how insane the position, no pun intended, of the statists and the non-revolutionaries is? If someone tries to sodomize you, you punch him in the throat, you kick him in the balls, you try to snap his neck, you try to break his fingers or his arm, you try to break his knee. You know, but what you do not do is bend over while saying to yourself that you have to let him rape you because, well, he's bigger and stronger and richer than you are. You know, fags bend over, men do not. Fags and women accept slavery, accept abuse, accept horror, men do not. Statists are cucks. By supporting the idea of government, they are saying that government has a greater right to their body and actions than they do. They're saying that the government has more of a right to say what they can put in their body or not put in their body than they do. They're saying the government has a right to tell them what to do and not do more than they have a right to say what they can do and not do. Right? There is nothing more cuckish than that. You know, accepting that the government has a greater right to their body and their actions than they do. I mean, this is so cuckish, it goes beyond normal cuckoldry. This is the ultimate in cuckishness. Statists are literally the ultimate cucks. Another thing I want to say in this video is that men cannot have authority without having moral authority. Because if we are going to give men greater authority in society, then men will abuse it if men do not have strong morals. And this gynocentrism problem would never have arisen if men had overthrown government or otherwise restrained government, and if men had not started engaging in premarital sex. You know, not overthrowing the government is a moral issue because it means you're a coward. It's a cowardice issue, and cowardice and courage are a moral issue. So not overthrowing the government when the government becomes tyrannical, such as it did when it established the Federal Reserve and created the income tax, both in 1913, and especially when the government became tyrannical when it took all the gold in 1933. Like, the fact that men did not overthrow the government when that happened, that is just proof that the men were morally weak, you know, because they had no courage. They were cowards, right? And so this is a moral issue. And men engaging in premarital sex with women is also a moral issue. You know, so the slavery that we are under now, both gynocentric and governmental tyranny, these are both due to the moral inferiority of men of the past. The moral laxness, the vice of men of the past, the cowardice and the lustfulness of men of the past. Men will never regain power in society until they unite behind a strong moral code. Until, you know, the vast majority of men get their morals back, 80, 90% of men, or at least a good, 10, 20, 30% of men, enough to overthrow the government. Until a lot of men get their morals back and get hardcore courageous, hardcore disciplined, no FAP, and hardcore wise, super educated on fiat currency and the government and how explosives work and how hacking works and how to use computers safely so you can't be surveilled and all the rest of it. Until men really, really get their morals back and start, waging war, economic war, cultural war, all kinds of war. Until this happens, we will never, get freedom back. Like, MGTOW is not going to get freedom back for men alone. Because MGTOW is growing, but it's growing slow enough to where the government will probably enact, AI-driven tyranny and surveillance and censorship so advanced by the time MGTOW even starts to get big enough to have an effect, a significant effect, that is. I mean, it's already having a noticeable effect, but it's not a big enough effect to where it'll actually change the country, right? So by the time MGTOW gets big enough to change the country, the government could have already instituted massive censorship. Technology could have advanced far enough to where we are totally, totally screwed because we thought that MGTOW alone could take care of the government problem. So yeah, it's a moral issue. It's a moral issue. Plus, like, how can men create a moral society in which men are in charge? How can men create a society in which men are in charge when men are fighting each other all the time because of lacking morals? Right? The only way men can all regain power over women and not fight each other is if men all unite behind a moral code. So really, whether men are in charge or women are in charge, and when women are in charge, it's not actually women being in charge. It's the top men, the top 1% of men, or the top 0.01% of men being in charge and just using women to oppress men. So it's like, 0.01% of men in charge, and then the women are below them in power, and then the 99% of men are even below the women in power. Right? So it's never really women in power. It's just women having more power than the vast majority of men. But the true people in power are always the top men, right? But yeah, how can men take back power from women and from the elites if they don't unite behind a moral code? It can't be done. So it's this whole revolution issue, this whole freedom issue, this whole overcoming gynocentrism issue, this whole overcoming censorship and government tyranny issue, it's all a moral issue. If men don't get their morals back, nothing can be accomplished. You could also say it's all a dysgenics/eugenics issue because, yes, the reason men are cowardly is because, they have less courage because of their inferior genes, because all the brave men are killed off in all these wars over the last 100 years. So yes, you could say it's a genetic issue as well, absolutely. But it's definitely not just a cultural issue or whatever other issue, it's gynocentrism issue. It's not just that. It's definitely either a genetic issue, you could term it in, or you could say it's a moral issue. But even immoral men can be quite moral if they're raised to be very moral, and even very moral men can be quite immoral if they're raised to be immoral. So really, you could say maybe the genetics is not as important, right? It's really a moral issue. It's a cultural issue, because that's how you raise people to be moral, is by a moral culture, right? So yeah, I want to say that. And then the very last thing I want to say in this video is that on Telemundo or Unimas, I can't remember which channel it was one of those two Spanish language channels, there's this show called Inseparables Amor al Límite, or Al Limite, something like that. I think it was Limite. The autocorrect fucked it up. I typed it up properly, but then it corrected me back to the English word. Fuck the stupid autocorrect. But anyway, it's this show where it's like, there's a bunch of romantic couples, right? I don't know if they're all husband and wife, or if some of them are boyfriend-girlfriend, or if they're all just boyfriend-girlfriends, but they're all couples, romantic couples, right? And they all compete in lots of different various challenges. And like probably over the whole season, they determine finally who's the winner, who's won the most challenges or whatever, right? So I've seen a few episodes of it, and I noticed on one of the episodes, one of the girls, she had a Star of David tattooed on her inner forearm. And then I noticed, like, maybe the next day or the day after, I noticed a different episode that a different guy, not even her boyfriend, but like a different guy, because I remember the girl was, I think, the couple with the guy who's like really, really skinny looking, and I thought, they look kind of like they might be both Jewish, and I was like, okay, maybe that's why she got Star of David. But then I noticed another guy in a different couple who doesn't look like he's Jewish. He looks much more Latino, and he had a Star of David like necklace that he was wearing. And then I noticed another guy in that same episode was wearing a five-pointed star necklace, because the Star of David has 6 points and a 5-pointed star is your typical, star, like a pentagram or whatever. It wasn't a pentagram, but it was a 5-pointed star. And so I'm pretty sure that this is intentional Illuminati symbolism. I mean, a 5-pointed star and 2 6-pointed stars, So I think this is intentional Illuminati symbolism. I've seen Illuminati symbolism on other Spanish language shows recently too. So it's not just the American, the English language TV shows that are popular you always hear about that have Illuminati symbolism. It's even shows that you've never heard about on Spanish language shows, on Spanish language channels that also have Illuminati symbolism in them. I'm telling you, this Illuminati thing is everywhere, at least in the West. And if I remember correctly, in one photo of Marina Abramovic doing a ritual with blood, where she had various symbols written on the wall in blood, if I remember correctly, two of those symbols were the Star of David and a 5-pointed star drawn on the wall in blood. So I think they are both Illuminati symbols. So that was what I had to say in this video. This has been Redshift. Tell someone about this radically original channel and tell someone about the independent thinking nature of this channel, because not everybody appreciates originality, but I think my content isn't necessarily better in many ways. In many ways, it's worse than other people's, because I don't edit the audio, as you can tell, and I don't put music, and I don't put visuals or anything, right? And I have a crappy mic, but I do have, I think, quite original ideas that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Maybe not in every video, but in a lot of my videos. And so maybe tell someone about this channel if you think they appreciate original content. Peace trucks for Plutocrats.